If you want to turn your vacation
Fear. False evidence appearing real.
Being afraid of something that has not yet happened and may never happen, based on past thoughts, beliefs, and conditioning. Throughout this world, there lives only two kinds of people: those who have conquered their fears and those who are living their fears. Those who are living their fears and those who are living their dreams because they had the courage to take on their fears.
What is the number one killer of dreams? What do you think is the number one reason the majority fail to live a life they love? What is the number one reason why people fail to succeed at any level? It's not luck. It's not lack of money or opportunity. It's certainly not circumstance. It's fear.
Fear is the greatest killer of dreams that ever roamed planet Earth. Fear is that voice inside you that says you can't. The voice that gets louder and stronger every time you listen. Every time you let fear dictate your decision, fear grows stronger. Fear grows bigger. Fear is the voice of average. The voice of the settler.
Fear must die. Fear will die.
The only way you can change is to step right into your fear.
You must step right into fear. You must sum up all the courage inside you and do the thing you fear most.
Failure may come. Your greatest fears may be realized. And that is why you go in with the attitude that you will do whatever it takes to conquer that fear.
No matter how many times I fail, no matter how many times I feel rejected, embarrassed, down, out, I will not give up. I will keep at it until my greatest fear dies. I will stand toe-to-toe with fear. Fear will die. My largest fear carries my greatest growth. I will never let my fears decide my fate. I am bigger than any fear. Fear has no place within my heart.
Fear has no place within your heart. Fear is conditioned into us from a young age. Many don't pay attention to the stages of fear. Be careful. You can't do that. Play it safe. These consistent fearful thoughts add up, live inside us, and form our psychology, which for most turns into inaction. For most turns into average. For most turns into settling for a life they aren't passionate about living.
Fear will die. It's time to take back control.
So how do we overcome our fears? Find something that is more painful than your fear. If you have a fear of failure that's stopping you from going all out and achieving at a high level, a more painful thought might be disappointing your family, or the thought of your kids seeing you settle for a life you don't want, and knowing they will follow in your footsteps. Maybe a greater pain would be the thought of getting to the end of your life and knowing you never really lived. You just exist. You got by. I need you to really feel that pain. Think about it. Feel a deep emotional connection to the pain. Write down why you won't settle for that pain anymore. Write down why you must conquer this fear once and for all. Why you must. What would be worse than your fear? We say it all the time. What is your reason? You have to have a strong enough reason why you must. They say if you have a strong enough why, the how will come, the results will come.
Why must you do this?
Be more fearful of what it will cost you if you don't do it. Be more fearful of the impact it will have on your future if you don't take action. Be more fearful of how it will impact the lives of your loved ones if you don't take action. What will it cost you? What about if you do face it? What about if you do conquer it? How will it improve your life? Who else will benefit?
Fear will not stop me if my desire to win is strong enough. Fear will not stop me. Now I am in charge. I live without fear. I fear nothing but a mediocre life. I fear nothing but an average existence. I fear nothing but an unlived life. I choose to live free, free from fear. Now I am in charge. I am in charge. Freedom! What would you do if you had no fear of failure? Why are you waiting?
Everyone has something they fear doing, that if they did it, if they conquered the fear, would have a huge impact on their life. Maybe it's the fear of failure. Maybe they fear embarrassment or rejection if it doesn't work out. Maybe they fear starting that business or making that call. That one thing you know you must do, and if you do it, will change your life forever. The greatest success in life is waiting for you, right after you conquer your greatest fears. Everything you want in life is on the other side of fear. It is impossible to reach your true potential if you don't face your greatest fears. That's just common sense. The thing that makes you uncomfortable, but you know would make you stronger and better if you did it, that's the thing you must face. That is the thing you must conquer if you want your freedom. Fear is a made-up concept. It doesn't exist. Think about it. Say you fear failure. You are really fearing a possibility, a thought in your head about something that may or may not occur in the future. It's not real. It's your imagination. Your thoughts do nothing to empower you. Let go of the fear and focus on what steps you can take to get to the place you want to get to. What is the one thing you must do that could change everything in your life?
Sorry we've been absent the last couple of weeks. We've been dealing with a lot of sicknesses and stuff. Every time somebody starts getting better, then somebody else starts getting sick. So just been hectic. But if you're joining us, glad that everybody can make it out tonight. We are not doing it in person, just due to lack of transportation and no babysitter and stuff like that. You know, if you have a family and kids, I'm sure you understand the typical thing with all that. But today's topic, we're actually going to get into overcoming fear and speaking out a little bit more. This topic kind of goes a lot with what our guest speaker Taylor Bash had talked about, and then also a lot of what I've taken notice with our group within Facebook and stuff. And bear with me, if anybody does leave comments or ask questions or whatever, I will get to those at the end. I will look at them, but we are streaming across 3 different platforms right now. So I don't exactly have the software or means or whatever to be able to look at all of them at the same time. So just kind of bear with me. But yeah, overcoming fear and speaking out. I feel like with mental health that's a very important thing, especially in today's economy. You know, obviously I'm sure you see what's going on with the political views and stuff, and you know, a lot of people aren't afraid to speak out on their political views, which, you know, everybody has their say so in that. But me personally, I feel like at the end of the day, given the amount of people that it would require to make an actual difference, speaking out about stuff that we can't really change or control, it's kind of out of our hands, doesn't really do us justice in the long run. But if we could, you know, encourage that energy and, you know, direct that into our mental health and, you know, put that much dedication and compassion into, you know, making sure that we strive and can be the best that we can be. We're going to get into a lot of different various topics. A lot of them might be relatable. And then at the end, I'll come on camera and we will do a little Q&A and stuff. Okay, so moving forward. So strategies for building confidence and finding that voice. So why do we fear speaking out? Well, that's a good question. It goes into a bunch of different topics. Fear of judgment. You know, a lot of us, especially in today's day and age, with social media, we see a skewed lens of what life could be. And a lot of times we, you know, put ourselves into that position and think like, oh my gosh, why am I not in that position? Why am I not, you know, where they are and things like that? And I always like to tell everybody in my family that, you know, fear of judgment is a terrible thing because it'll leave you disappointed in every aspect of your life at every single turn. Because what you see on social media doesn't relate with what actually happens in real life. And so a lot of us won't make decisions based on stuff. We won't speak out on topics that we truly deep down feel very strongly about. And so we got to keep in mind that as much as we'd like to think that everybody's living the same life or having these lavishes life and stuff, you know, big things always between the rich and the poor, do keep in mind that 99% of what we think or what we're afraid of somebody's judging us for usually never becomes that. that's all just a figment of our imagination and doesn't actually portray in the same way that we make up this story for. And then we got fear of failure. A lot of people now, it's not quite as bad as it used to be. Ever since COVID has happened, people kind of, see the light for what it is and have kind of taken those risks a little bit more, especially since we've gotten into remote work, things like that. But, fear of failure, you should never look at failure as being what it is, failure. Failure is always a learning lesson. And if you're not failing, then you're not learning. And if you're not learning, then, you're going to always stay stagnant in life, which is going to create a lot of boredom. It's going to create a lot of missed opportunities. And it's going to relate back to the judgment thing. You're going to always sit there and fear the judgment of like, why are these people in this position and I'm not, I'm X age or, X good looking or whatever. I should, have the same opportunities. But those opportunities come because those people, took that risk. They weren't afraid of failing. They weren't afraid of jumping into it. And so, those opportunities usually, embark within their journey because they took that chance. So always remember that failure doesn't mean that you failed. The moment it becomes failure is when you stop trying. As long as you continue to push through, whether that be little steps, big steps, however you manage to get through that, as long as you're trying, you're putting in the commitment, you're trying what works for you, you will eventually see your success with what you're wanting out of your future. And so as long as you don't quit, then you truly never actually fail. They just become learning lessons. You turn that page, write your new chapter. Fear of rejection. This is a big one too. If you explore different areas, you always see that there's a big cultural shock among different states, counties, countries, things like that. And you realize that there's a lot of areas outside of the one that you're in where people are actually very friendly. They're very accepting of who you are as a person, and we all have our own story. So when it comes to rejection, don't be afraid to be rejected by something, because that rejection may be something good for you. You may tell your story or try something new, and you fear that you're going to be rejected. But in reality, life was just telling you that, like, hey, we rejected you for a reason, because this is not where you belong. This is not the path that you should be on. And the people that truly believe in what you're doing, or who you are as a person, are out there. Just where you got rejected at is not where it's supposed to be. And so you just gotta keep moving forward. Rejection's always going to be a part of life. For any of those who know me, we work in the insurance business. We have a lot of people that fill out cards and surveys and stuff like that to make sure that these people are interested in the product that we're booking our appointment for and spending our time on, taking time away from our families to do a call with you, to make sure that your family is financially put in a really good spot. But these people, because they fear fear the judgment of their financial situation, and fear the failure of maybe their health isn't good enough and they're going to get declined because maybe they have in the past or something. You get told every day, no, 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 no. And so, that rejection is like constant and it builds you. And so as long as you keep trying, just kind of like the fear of failure, as long as you keep moving forward, then, you will find where you belong. And that rejection is only going to build a strong mindset and create, a confident and powerful you through all that rejection. And rejection is just usually just a simple no. Or, sometimes people reject you because they're jealous of something that you're doing and they don't want to be a part of it because they feel inferior. And so sometimes people get rejected based on that. So, again, rejection is actually a useful tool that you can use to your advantage to build up that strong foundation within your courage, your strength, your wisdom, and ultimately at the end of the day, what makes you be able to trek forward without any worries. Fear of making mistakes, that kind of goes into the rejection thing. I personally believe a little bit. So I'm not going to touch on that too much, but fear of making mistakes, again, that goes with the rejection and the failure. We all make mistakes. We're all human. None of us are perfect. If we were perfect, then, well, this would be a pretty boring life. I don't know about you, but if we all lived the same exact life, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie The Lorax. My kids watch it constantly. But everybody's the same. Everybody shares the same common denominator, live in the same town. Everybody does the same stuff. You're kind of surrounded in this little community built so everybody does the exact same thing, and nobody can kind of go outside of that. But mistakes do the same thing. They build character. They're a good learning, educational foundation for our everyday lives. Kind of like the failure thing. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not learning. Or like a lot of the wealthy people like to say, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not trying hard enough to propel your life forward. And then that's when you're going to have a lot of issues with mental health going south. You're going to, develop bad eating habits. You're going to develop drawing a blank. Don't mind me. These are normal for me. But generally speaking, making mistakes is your educational foundation of what makes you who you are and builds the blocks to your house on what you know and what you don't. Because once you make a mistake, you can learn from it. You can acknowledge it, be like, okay, I made this mistake. This didn't work out for me. We're going to try and go this direction instead. But we now have that educational platform where we now know that that mistake we made is not the way to do it for the next time. And so think of making mistakes as an educational platform for you. I'll go back. So we have fear of judgment, which is, a great confidence and great character building. We have fear of failure and fear of making mistakes, which both are phenomenal educational platforms that you have built into you as an individual. So don't look at it as failure or making a mistake. Look at it as, hey, I learned something today that I know now I will not do again next time. And fear of rejection, same thing. That builds strength and courage. Once you get rejected enough time, you'll develop that fundamental courage foundation, and it'll help you get through the next situation that might not go as planned. So the science behind fear and how it affects our brain. So a lot of times when we go into fear, you know, we have one of three different responses. We go into fight, flight, or freeze. Some people that struggle with processing emotions, struggle with frustration, anger. Maybe they were, raised in an unideal situation in their family. A lot of times people will, go into fight mode. Somebody will try to offer an opportunity. Instead, they'll want to try to literally fight them, whether it be physically or mentally. That can turn into like defense mode and stuff like that, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing. I mean, take lawyers and attorneys and stuff, for instance. They have to fight for their clients, and so fight response can actually be a good thing in that aspect. Then you got flight. Flight is just basically our survival response, and so if we fear something, our body is going to naturally tell us like, hey, this doesn't seem safe or right. Same thing with intuition. I don't think this is the way to go, and so your body will literally become like stiff, and your brain's going to sit there and keep telling you like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And to overcome that fear, that you do have to do it. Now, flight can be a good thing in certain survival modes, but I know there's certain times where flight can actually be a bad thing because flight will actually diminish your confidence. So you'll have a lack of confidence. You'll lack the courage to do whatever it is. And if you do try to move forward with it and face that fear, if you don't have the courage and the confidence to do it, then your survival instincts are going to kick in, and that's going to cause you to potentially end up harming yourself in one way or another. So it can have good benefits to it. You just got to pay attention to what your body's telling you, and kind of learn those instincts on whether it's going to be a good move or not. And then of course we got freeze. Freeze is pretty self-explanatory. We sit there and think like, hey, I know I want to say this, I want to comment on this, I want to do this thing, but our body goes into that survival mode and literally causes us to just become a standing stick. We're not able to move, the anxiety's kind of getting to us, the panic attack is kind of starting to settle in, and it just makes us real stiff, real numb. We really don't know what to do. And so those are going to be our three responses typically when we encourage fear. The role of negative self-talk. I'm sure. Oh, hold on. Mic problems. These mics don't like to ever stay on. I'm going to have to upgrade these bad boys. But the role of negative self-talk. I'm sure you've always heard that, like, always say positive affirmations, do good things like that, and it'll strengthen the mindset behind what you're doing. And so sorry, sidetracked. And so, it's always going to encourage our mindset so that way, we think in a more positive way. Because, what we tell our brains is usually how we're going to think, we're going to feel, and we're going to see, because it affects all of our senses. So if we tell ourselves that, like, hey, I'm too afraid Hold on, switch this mic. Bear with me. We'll eventually have the platforms and every right equipment to do this correctly. One day. It's all a learning curve. Prime example, if we feared the judgment and we feared the rejection of this not working or what people are going to think, then we would never do this at all, and we would never help you guys see a different side to things. So, okay, back on topic. The role of negative self-talk. So, key principles to that is it affects all your senses. And so if you tell yourself that your responses, whether fight, flight, or freeze, and it's going to match the energy of that negative self-talk. Now, if you tell yourself, like, I'm strong, I'm confident, my voice matters, and thing that you've always wanted to do, you might still have those three responses, whether fight, flight, or freeze, but now because the frequency of the energy is on different ends, now you have more encouragement to be able to get through that fight, flight, or freeze response, because now you have a little bit of confidence or courage in order to be able to move forward with that. On us than we think. Kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the rejection and the judgment thing is, we tell ourselves in our head that, oh my God, Elizabeth is going to think that, I'm ugly, or Johnny's going to think that when I post this comment or this status that I'm an idiot, or, I want to pursue this passion that really means a lot to me, but does it make me weak or less than of a person if I do this and don't follow the trend of everybody else? The answer to that is always going to be no. Now, most of the time, people are thinking the exact same thing you're thinking, which is going to be the same responses. Oh my God, what are they thinking? Oh my God, is this going to, do this ABC effect to me? So on and so forth. And so, why we're making up this theory in our head that causes us to struggle with overcoming the fear, we think that somebody else is going to say something negative towards us, when in reality, 99% of the time, they're actually thinking the exact same thing as you are. And so while you think they're going to make fun of you or judge you for what you're doing, they're actually in the back of their mind worried about the same thing, like, oh my God, I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to fail at this thing, or whatever. And so you're making up a story about someone else when they're thinking the exact same thing you are. And so you guys actually are sharing that mutual effect of being afraid. And that's okay. But what's not okay is that story that we tend to make up in our head that never existed. It's that what if mentality. And so we build up this, story, because honestly, if we're all building up stories in our head, think about how many of us can be phenomenal authors and have, first time bestseller books. We just don't write it on paper and publish it with a publisher. But we know how to write our own stories and tell our own what if stories. So the spotlight effect, it's a very mutual thing. 99% of the time, the person is thinking the exact same thing you are. And so while you're worried about what might happen or the what ifs, that's never going to end up actually happening. And if you are able to overcome that fear and you see that, then you end up realizing on the other side, like, oh my goodness, I feel silly for thinking that. I should have acted on this sooner. That is usually the mentality that people have once they get over that fight, flight, or freeze response and they're able to overcome that fear. This is just a little brain diagram and some text within it that just kind of shows how our brain works in the midst of fear. I'll read it real quick. The amygdala, and I probably said that horribly wrong, is a small almond-shaped area of gray matter in the limbic system of the brain that is one of the structures responsible for fear processing and emotions. However, scientists do not know fully what all the functions of the brain are. This sensation is what happens when you have a sensory signal come into your brain and travels to that gray matter and initiates a fight or flight response. This allows your body to have a fear response before you analyze the potential danger of a situation. Person who experiences high level anxiety tend to have an overreactive one. So if you're somebody who suffers from anxiety really bad, panic attacks, things like that, then this is going to be a common nature to you. It doesn't make anything wrong with you. It makes you perfectly normal, just like the rest of us. Just means that you have an extra step that you have to take in order to overcome that fear. So, unlike to somebody who's not as sensitive to that, they don't have to take that extra step. So it's just going to take you a little bit longer. But there's nothing wrong with that, because as long as you're moving forward, taking action, and trying, making the effort, then you never are failing. And then this is just kind of a little cartoon picture of probably what most of us look like when we are in that fear position, fight, flight, or freeze. It's like one of those like, oh my gosh. So reframing fear as growth. Let me make sure that this audio is working. Hold on. I will figure these things out. No, go back. All right. Yep, still working. Perfect. All right, so start back where this was. Go through this. All right, back on track. Reframing fear as growth. So fear is normal, like I had mentioned. Just depending on how sensitive that area of your brain is, will just kind of determine on whether, it takes you longer or not to actually overcome that. It signals an opportunity to grow. Like I said, if you're still making the effort, then you're always going to come out winning at the end. We could shift our mindset. This is a challenge, but not a threat. That's a great way to look at it. So we can always look at everything as a challenge because, fear is going to always insert anxiety. It's going to insert panic attack. It's going to insert lack of certainty. It's going to insert a lot of negative emotions that we typically don't want to be feeling, especially if we're trying something new and we want to succeed at it. But that doesn't make it a threat. It's a new experience. Our body's not familiar with it, and so our body gets sent into that flight mode for survival. You experience something new. It's going to be a challenge to you. Your body and your brain's not used to it. It's not used to, those certain features and functions and sights and tastes and everything else. And so your flight mode's going to think that, alert, alert, alert. But in reality, it's actually not a threat. Through your vision sense that it is just something new. So confidence grows through action. I always think that's a good one because the more we keep trying, the more we learn. the better understanding and education we have behind said thing, the more confident we become. And, the whole thing behind Safe, Heal, Grow and what we're doing with these peer supports and eventually the programs and everything else that we'll implement is doing just that. We want to reduce those stigmas. We want to build that confidence. We want as many people in this world as we can to develop a confident mindset so mental health is not as big of an issue. Because through confidence, provide you with strength. And with strength comes less mental health struggles, and our body is going to think less of everything being a threat. And so we'll experience more happiness, we'll experience more better days, we'll have less issues with eating habits, mood swings, anxiety, stuff like that. But the only way to get there is by taking action. I know anytime, like with the BMX and the motocross and like new careers and stuff like that, the way that I used to always, well, I still actually do this tactic today, is I would always close my eyes, take one really big deep breath, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I would act as soon as I had clear vision. Because I'm sure you guys know, once you close your eyes, everything goes black and then kind of goes speckly once you start opening them again because of the light change and stuff. But like with the BMX and all that stuff, if I was super afraid, I was shaking, anxiety was at a high level and all that, I would close my eyes, take a very big deep breath, which would help put me in a calmer state of being. And then while I was in that calm state of being, before I had the chance to think about the flight or freeze response, I would open my eyes and instantly take action on what I was afraid of. Sometimes I got hurt, sometimes I didn't, but no matter what, you always got back up and tried again. But because I built that confidence from the moment I opened my eyes and just went for whatever it was, once I put my body in a calm state of being, then that allowed me to not think about the fear and allowed me to be confident about what I was going to try and do. And that I would call that like fake confidence, really. But once I accomplished that for the first time, my body understood that it was no longer a threat. And so, did it still become a challenge? Yes, of course. You still have to do it again, especially if it didn't go right the first time. But because you did it that first time and your body is no longer thinking of it as a survival tactic, it is now a lot easier to overcome that fear now that you've already done it once. You have the confidence in yourself, in the ability to be able to do whatever it is a second, third, fourth time. And once you get to that second, third, fourth time, that now allows you to develop that educational platform I talked about at the beginning, where you're able to learn from the mistakes, learn what to do, what not to do, and that just makes what you're trying to accomplish and overcome that much easier, because you have a new method and a new pathway to take each and every time that you do it, because you're learning something new through each tactic, because you overcame that judgment, you overcame that fear, you overcame the thought of failing, you overcame, the thought of making a mistake. And so now, not only does your body not think of the survival tactic anymore, but now you built confidence within yourself. And then I had actually mentioned this at the beginning, that mistakes channel strength. And so every time you make a mistake, think of it as a learning platform. Don't think about it as, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. What the heck? I suck. Oh my goodness. Think of it as, okay, I made a mistake. Didn't work out the first time. But now I know what not to do the next time. And so this time we have it for sure. And so just channel that energy into strength, into confidence, into encouragement. Allow the previous lesson to strengthen your ability to accomplish the goal. Now, prime example, if you don't know how to cook, we all, I'm sure, know how to make mac and cheese, but say you don't. You're not going to boil the water and then dump the cheese in and then the noodles and then go to eat it and realize the noodles are still as hard as they were when they came out of the box. No. When we try to make it again, we're either going to get a mentor to help us or we're going to try it a different way because we knew that the first time putting the cheese in first with the boiling water, then the noodles, didn't work. So now let's try and put the noodles in first, let them cook, and then we'll add the cheese. And then we'll notice that the noodles actually cooked. It was tasty, but that was because we made a mistake the first time, improvised on the second time, changed things up a little bit. We didn't make the same mistake twice, and now it channeled the strength and the ability to make that mac and cheese. And so now after multiple tries and the education part of it built inside of us, we have now learned that through those mistakes, we have now just made the best mac and cheese in town. But we had to make mistakes to get there in order to understand how to cook it properly. But we can apply those principles to everything in life. So this is just kind of a chart that just shows the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So a growth or a fixed mindset is going to be, this is too hard. It's too much of a challenge. Going back to the mac and cheese. So we failed the first time. It didn't work out. The noodles were still hard. So if we had a fixed mindset, then we would say this is too hard. We would give up and we wouldn't continue forward. But because we knew we wanted to make that mac and cheese and to be able to do it on our own, we chose to have the growth mindset. And so we tried it a second time. We knew, we gave ourselves the affirmation of let's do this. And so we tried it a different way. Challenge now became an accomplished thing. Same thing with the fixed mindset on this is rigged. This comes with adversity. So if something becomes hard and you see that somebody else is excelling at it, you may have this thought of, okay, this is rigged, this is cheating, this, is against me, whatever that might be. But in reality, it's just a skill set that you haven't learned yet. And so because you haven't learned it yet, it's going to be really difficult because you don't have that educational platform of doing it over and over and over to build that confidence. So the growth mindset would say, how can I solve this? This is usually a great tactic with people who are, phenomenal problem solvers, kind of like myself. I always say that there's 101 ways to do something. You just got to figure out which one works for you. And so this is kind of where that goes into play. Fixed mindset for an effort is going to be this is a waste of time. This can kind of go into hand with something that's going to be hard to do. Maybe you don't excel. Maybe you're one of those people that, certain tasks are harder than others and, it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 times longer than the other person who finds that type of stuff to be easy. Maybe that person grew up his whole life around chefs and things like that. And so the effort it takes to make that mac and cheese is going to be a lot smaller gap because they've, spent their whole lives watching how mac and cheese was made. So they had an idea, a perception on how it needed to be done. Where you, on the other hand, might not have had anybody to teach you. And so, we might think that it's a waste of time if we're in fight or flight mode, wanting to give up, not wanting to try. So we have to, shift our mindset and think like, okay, no, it's just time to work hard. We're going to solve this. There is a way to make this happen. Criticism, that's going to go a lot with fear of judgment and fear of rejection. So, the fixed mindset would be like, in this example, how dare you? Or you may feel offended or shamed or a little upset by what had happened. The growth mindset is going to say, okay, here's how I can improve. So, say we wrote a book and 10 people didn't like it. Instead of saying, throwing the book in the trash and saying, I give up, to have the growth mindset, we could be like, how do we improve? Then you can go around asking other people, okay, what did I do in this book that you did not like, but that we could change that would make you want to buy this book again? And so if we don't get that criticism, then we're never going to know. Again, how dare you? That's just giving up. I know this is a big thing with the youth in schools and stuff is, somebody might walk up to you and be like, oh my gosh, are you an ugly tomato? And that person, might think the same thing, like, how dare you? I'm not ugly, or you're right, or whatever. And then they'll walk away, and then they'll think about the rest of the day, and it'll get to them. And they'll think about, like, oh my God, am I really ugly? Should I chop my hair off? Should I, do something crazy? But no, that's not the right answer, is it? No, not at all. Because what's ugly to one person is beautiful to another person. And so maybe that person was just not the right person, or maybe that person was having a bad day and that was just the first response that they could do because they didn't know how to process their emotions. So there'd be a lot of different examples with that. Other people's success. Now I know this one's huge, and I personally deal with this all the time. Being quote unquote the black sheep in my family, or my friends. Somebody could do something great. You would normally think that the reaction would be like, awesome, that's great, you did a great job, keep doing what you're doing, so on and so forth. But typically the response is going to be like, oh no, you're going to fail, don't do that, that's not going to work out, like things like that. That's typically who you're going to hear from, and a lot of times you hear it from your own family. Typically the people that aren't doing the thing that they're telling you that you're going to fail at, even though they haven't even taken a chance to try it themselves. Those kind of people you don't want to let get in your head, because if you know it's a great idea, as long as you know how to execute it correctly, then it will always be a great idea. And so you've got to believe in yourself, because you will have people that have achieved good things or great things, and they'll agree with you. They'll have that growth mindset, like, oh my God, that's incredible, or like, great job, or I'm so proud of you, or I'm glad you took the initiative to do that, and things like that. So, overall, kind of summarizing this little chart, life is always going to throw us curveballs. It's how you hit the ball that's going to make a difference in the direction that your life takes you. You can either let the ball hit you in the face, your helmet, the catcher's glove, and no progress gets made. And then you're blaming everybody on why you didn't take a swing at the bat. Or you could take a swing at the bat, you might miss it, but at least you know how to hit it next time, or when to hit it next time. Or you may hit a home run, And it might be the best thing that you've ever done or tried in your life. And now it's built up this confidence level that has, embarked so much encouragement to you. And now you may want to go, show the world on how great you can become. This is kind of another just graphic, fixed mindset, living in this roughed up apartment building. It's probably more in the ghetto. The people are always probably thinking about, like, oh my God, I'm not good enough, or everybody's out to get me. Or they grew up with a rough past and they, in and out of jail a lot. Those are probably going to be the people that have a fixed mindset. But great thing about a fixed mindset is you always have the potential to unlock the chains, toss them over your shoulder, and be free to walk forward and grow as much as you can. Growth mindset is kind of related to this beach house. If you're willing to grow, be open, be willing to speak out, stick up for yourself, things like that, then that's going to put you in line with great people, great opportunities, great careers, great relationships, and overall a healthy mindset for yourself as an individual. Practical strategies to overcome fear. This kind of gives a list of examples. So we have prepare and practice. So the more you prepare, the more confident you're going to feel into going and doing said thing or talking about said topic, things like that. Breathe and pause. Use deep breathing techniques to calm the nerves. This is kind of what I talked about with a couple slides ago on we use the BMX example again. Like when I was about to go down a handrail, and I don't know for anybody who's ever been on a bicycle or a skateboard and thought about going down a handrail, especially if there's like a lot of steps, you look over those stairs and it is a daunting fear to overcome because there's so much stuff that can go wrong if you don't have the confidence to do it. And so this is what I would always do when we do stuff like that is, close your eyes, take a deep breath, put your body in a calm state of being, and as soon as you open your eyes, take action. That way you're not giving your brain time to think about the flight thing, survival mode, any of those negative feelings. You're allowing yourself to be calm and already have that confidence to take a step forward the moment you open up your eyes. And that's all you're thinking in your mind is, okay, as soon as I open my eyes, we're doing this thing. We're going after it. And usually, which same thing, we used to do this a lot with action sports, is if you gave yourself enough time to think about it, then that survival mode would kick in and then you'd freeze up and you wouldn't take action on it because you took too long and allowed your brain to get, recover and get back into that survival mode. So it's important to just take action the moment you put your body in a calm state of being. If not, freeze mode or freeze response will kick in, so will the flight, and then you'll end up having to restart all over, or you won't take action or do said thing at all. It can be a very discouraging thing going through that process over and over. And then start small. So speak in small groups before larger audiences. So like the people that are a part of our support group, I try every week or every couple days to encourage people to interact with us, get everybody talking, because at the end of the day, we all share the same common denominators and we all are struggling with something. But if we don't speak out about it or we don't give our opinion about it, then we're not going to be able to fix whatever it is we have going on, or we're not going to be able to get that advice that could end up being life-changing for us if we don't speak out. So small groups, I would say, start with the people that you're close with, and then branch out to like maybe useful counselors that actually are good. Then branch out to like bigger groups and kind of just keep getting that criticism, that knowledge, that different ways of building your foundation, so that a way you can overcome your fear and take on bigger and bigger challenges. So positive visualization. Imagine yourself speaking confidently. I'm sure you've heard this on cartoons and stuff before growing up, that like imagine them, they're all in their underwear when you're up on stage about to speak somewhere or whatever. I don't recommend doing that, but if that's what helps you, go for it. But just kind of stand tall, chest out, and, put yourself in a confident state of being. So that way, when you go to do the thing, you've built up that self-esteem within yourself. Finding your voice. This is what a lot of people don't do, but a lot of people should. Recognizing your opinions matter. As much as you think they don't, they do. Because your opinion may not help the person you're talking to, but because you spoke about that opinion, that might be helpful for somebody that person does know, and now they might go tell that person what that opinion that you spoke about, and it'll help somebody else. And so it could become like a big revolving circle. So if you think that your opinion doesn't matter, your opinion always does matter. We all think differently, we all feel differently, and we all learn differently. And so it's important that we always provide some kind of opinion, knowledge, things like that, no matter what, because maybe one person can't use it and you might feel discouraged because it was useless to them, but maybe they know somebody that could use it. And so at the end of the day, your opinion is still making a difference in this world. Speaking up for yourself and others. Now I talked to, briefed on this at the beginning about how people like to do this with politics, but they don't like to do it for anything else, which is very weird because, in my opinion, at the end of the day, long term, there's never going to be enough people to agree on the same thing where it's actually going to make a difference. And so there's always going to be a disagreement somewhere. But when it comes to our mental health, speaking up for yourself and for others can be a very important thing. It can build that confidence within yourself. It can help you build that strength within yourself. And if you're sticking up for somebody else, maybe they've just never had somebody there for them. And by you speaking up and helping them, that gives them the confidence and the ability to see through to the next level. And maybe because you were there for somebody, now they want to be there for you or somebody else because you sticking up for them gave them that confidence that they needed all along. And that's the same thing with in our group and stuff. And you got to speak up for yourself, whether you're in our group, on these calls, out in the open, wherever. Just always remember your opinion matters, and so do you. And then owning your own unique perspective. So like I mentioned just a moment ago, that we all think differently, we all feel differently, and we all have different knowledge on different things. And a lot of times in conversation, if you're willing to speak up, your perspective on things can be very enlightening for somebody else who maybe wasn't thinking about something in that kind of form. And now that you got them thinking, now that allows us to have different opinions, but share a common theme, and be able to view it in different viewpoints. So again, reiterating all that, the picture is just, basically you being bound to those chains by not speaking up. And so that's kind of what that represents. So remember, your opinion matters, so do you. And maybe there's somebody who's not confident in themselves yet, and they just need that boost of confidence. And by you being there for them and sticking up for them, that gives them the confidence that they need to speak up going forward. And then having your own perspective on things allows us all to be able to have a better understanding of how you think, how I think, how the world thinks, and being able to have a better understanding of how we all operate, but how we can all come together as one. And when it comes to mental health, that is so important for us all to come together. We have such a divided country anymore because none of us are willing to speak up for ourselves or give perspective on how we think versus somebody else's think. And so we can't conversate about those differences and find out why people think differently, because that perspective might be very logical and might change the way that you feel or think about something, which ultimately at the end of the day could end up making your life better. So it's important to acknowledge, to be open about perspectives and being there, and that every day your opinion does matter. Couple tips here for speaking with confidence. So like I mentioned earlier, stand tall, use open body language, chest out, have that look of confidence. Slow down and speak clearly. A lot of people take notice that when you start talking really fast and you're really scared and you don't know what to do and you're very nervous and stuff like that, you start talking like this and everybody kind of notices it because it's, people notice it. It's body language, psychology. And so you can notice when something's not right. So if we just slow down, speak clearly, it allows us all to have a better understanding of what's trying to be said and why it's being said. Plus, when you slow down, it shows that you are more confident in what you are talking about. Maintain eye contact. And I know a lot of people struggle with this, including myself. Kind of a lot to do with how I was raised and whatnot. But having eye contact shows people that not only are you confident in the conversation, you're confident with the person you're talking to, and you're confident with the information being talked about. Plus, it shows respect to the person as well. I'm sure we've all been there before where, you're talking in a group of people and everybody's sitting there in front of their phone, staring down at it, and all you see is the back of the phone. You don't feel like you're being acknowledged. You don't feel like the people are confident in the conversation. And at the end of the day, it actually probably makes you feel discouraged to want to talk. So eye contact's important. Just make sure to note that when you make eye contact, do still make sure that every so often, you're looking away or something. You're not just like staring the person down like you're about to, destroy them or something, like, oh my God, my worst enemy. Like, you don't want to be that person. So when you do maintain eye contact, make sure you're looking away every now and then, but still making sure that you're talking with that confidence, you're making the eye contact, and you're acknowledging that the conversation is being had. Engage with your audience. I'm sure most of you know on the group, I try and do this a lot with you guys, and I tag every one of you guys. Try to bring you in on everything that we're doing. I try to include you on everything. But this is also why we encourage the in-person thing, which we've been slacking at a little lately. But this is why we encourage it, because it allows us to engage with you guys, allows you guys to be able to be the storyteller versus me. Because we do want you guys to, speak about your stories. We want you guys to have your voice heard, your story, your book, whatever you'd like to call it. We want that to be heard so that way not only does it help you get those feelings, emotions, that state of being out, but we can help you guide the direction or provide useful resources to help you through those situations, so you no longer have to be trapped inside of that lack of confidence. And then this is just a little graph that I got off the internet. And so, according to renowned professional psychologists, 3 elements account for our perception of a person: words, tone of voice, and body language. And I always like to tell my family, because they never believe me, that you don't ever have to say a single word for me to have an idea of what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and why you're feeling that way. Because your body language, there's a lot of things, if anybody's ever looked into psychology, there's a lot of little tweaks and ticks and quirks and body movements and facial movements and stuff like that, that show how a person is feeling mentally without actually having to express it. Because your body will do certain things when you're afraid of something, when you're nervous, when you're confident, things like that. And then obviously the tone of your voice or how you speak to someone can really give off a different perception. If I was giving you the presentation this whole time like this, you would think that I was angry and, wasn't too happy and having a bad day, things like that. But I'm talking slowly to you guys, and I'm, trying to talk clearly, also trying to not have brain farts constantly. But I'm doing it in a calm manner because I want you guys to understand the information. I want you guys to indulge in the information, take it in, hoping to provide value to you guys. And then the next one is your words, which, if you ask my wife, I am terrible at this. I don't really think about what comes out of my mouth half the time. It's not always that it's mean or nice. It's just the way that it's said that becomes problematic for people sometimes. So 7% is something that I struggle with if we're judging by the graph. But the way that you phrase your words, express your words, things like that can come off, different ways as well. Like, if you phrase something in a certain way, it can come off as evil, or you can say it in a different way and it comes off super nice and friendly. It just all depends. But if you take notice, 55% of our body language, and that's never even talking, never saying a single word. That's just standing face to face to somebody. 55%, over half of our perception comes from body language. So when next time you think about someone and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember Cindy Lou did this thing and it was just bothering me and she wouldn't stop doing it. And then she started talking, and I wasn't expecting that she would say that. Like, that could be a lot because, of the body language. She didn't have to say anything, and so it got, threw them off when they did start talking. I'll give some real life examples here. I'm sure most of all of us know Martin Luther King Jr. Had to overcome that fear of speaking out, being confident in what he believed in to overcome the obstacles to inspire change within our civil rights. So imagine how much fear and anxiety that he must have had, knowing that he was the first person to speak out about certain topics. Imagine the fear of judgment and rejection that he had in his mind, knowing that he was doing something that most of the world at that time did not agree with. Imagine that sensation. Now, after you imagine that, does crossing the street backwards sound so hard anymore? Probably not. Next one's going to be Rosa Parks. Same thing, just overcame a bunch of obstacles to inspire women's rights, civil rights, inspire change. Imagine how much she feared going into what she did on the bus and all the other things that she did out in the world. Like, that had to have been daunting to know that rejection you were about to have, but you knew what was right because you believed it so much and you were confident in what you believed that you weren't afraid to speak out about it. You wanted to make sure that everybody knew your perspective on things, which ultimately at the end of the day worked out because that perspective helped change the way that our world works now. So, like I mentioned, it may not matter in the moment, but no matter what, everybody's opinion matters. So it is important to speak up about anything and everything, and especially if you have a different perspective on the way one thing's done, it might give insight to somebody else and might help change their mind or your mind, however it works out. So, very important. And then, if there's anybody on here that wants to share their story, now would be the time to do that. But while I'm seeing if anybody's commented for this, I just want to let you know that, same thing. I'm doing something with mental health, which most people, especially the ones I've talked to, would not even dare to even think about doing. But I'm confident that we can make this world a better place. I'm confident in what I believe in. And I'm confident that you guys believe in a similar thing as well. And so I'm stepping out. We're building this nonprofit to become global eventually, to give everybody a platform to be able, a facility, program, service, everything, so that everybody that embarks in this journey will see success at the end of it. Because I believe, rich, poor, doesn't matter where you come from, I believe everybody has the opportunity and should have the opportunity to succeed. And be able to live their dreams the way that they always envisioned their life to be. Here's a little quote from him. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject a verb, agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. Now, kind of wrapping up things here. So fear is temporary and growth is forever. Always remember that. Remember that mistakes and failure are always going to be a part of life, but they're there to, they're there so you can embrace them, become stronger, wiser, and an overall better human being, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And fear, there is always a tactic. It's just a matter of finding which one works for you. Whether you take my tactic or somebody else's, or you come up with your own, fear is just there as a survival tactic for your body, because that is how our bodies are wired. But if we were to always rely on our body and the way our brain thought, then all of us would be the same people. And we definitely wouldn't have rich or poor people. So always remember that survival doesn't always necessarily mean good. It's okay to have those fight, flight, or freeze responses, but it doesn't always make it right. Sometimes you have to come up with a tactic that works for you so you can proceed that growth forever. And don't take everything in life so personal. Remember, we're humans. We're all imperfect in perfect ways. We're all different, and we all have unique perspectives. And so I always want you guys to remember that. Speak up, because your opinion matters, your voice matters, and that is how we change the world. By speaking up. By including people with us. By becoming more competent human beings in our abilities to succeed in our dreams and goals. And going into this next thing, I want you guys to repeat this. If you're on now, watching this, close the door so you don't feel embarrassed, or do whatever you got to do, but I want you to repeat this with me, okay? So remember, your voice matters, use it, and I challenge you guys to let someone know how you truly feel on one specific topic. And then come join our group at Save, Heal, Grow Peer Support Group, or whatever it's called. I actually forget. Silly me. And let me know how that experience went. For those who don't know, I actually have changed the settings on it. And if it's not that way, then let me know so I can figure out how to make it that way, because it should be. But on our group, anytime you respond to something, nobody can see who's responding because everything shows up as anonymous. So your name will never be presented in anything unless you willingly want it to. So everything stays private and anonymous in our groups. So let someone know how you truly feel, whether that's a spouse, friend, child, or coworker. Come to the group. Let us know how it went. I would love to hear about it. And let me know, was it something you had to overcome with fear? Was it something that you were afraid as far as the rejection and the judgment goes? Did you think you were going to fail at doing it? Did the outcome happen the way that you envision it to go? Let me know how it went. I would love to hear about it. Remember, excellent demands that you do your best, not that you be your best. And so as long as you're making an effort forward, and you're always making an effort, you are never failing. You are just learning. And so I'm going to repeat that again. Excellent demands that you do your best, not that you be the best. And so you can stay imperfect while still growing and succeeding and speaking out. So leave a comment or valid a comment on the screen to tell us what your biggest fear is when speaking out. And because I was early on the last one, this is where it's going to be. So I want you guys to repeat after me. I'm bold. I'm brave. I have done amazing things in my journey. I have wrote the pages to my book. Those pages have taught me I can feel alive even if I take a wrong turn. Today, I have the power to write the next version of my book and have the strength to live a more fulfilled journey one day at a time. Today, I vow to reach out, to speak up, to comment, and to walk with a pep in my step. And if you're watching this, I hope you repeated that, and I hope that you understand that you are bold, brave, you do have the power to write the next version of your book, to encourage that strength and confidence within each and every one of us. And then if you have any questions, I will look out in the things, and I will answer those as we go. I'll give that like 5 minutes or so. But if not, then we will end it here in like 5 minutes. So I'll give it some time. See how. Refresh this. I don't think we have anything going on. Doesn't look like on that. We're just going to end this since it messed up anyways. All right. It looks like nobody's got any questions here, so we will end it here. I hope you guys gained value out of this. And if you did, go join the Facebook group, like, subscribe, share it among everybody. And I hope you can overcome your fear in your journey. And remember, today's faults do not become tomorrow's accomplishments. So as long as you're making an effort, you're not failing. So, as always, God bless. Love you all. Stay strong. Until next time.